Hi guys, and welcome to something slightly different from me. I thought rather than writing a blog post to go through how I painted the Leviathan Siege Dreadnought for my Imperial Fist Army, I'd record it as a video instead. I thought you might find this more interesting, and it's something a little different. So as you can see, this is the finished model. First off, I have to say as a review, I know I've been critical in the past for some of Forge World's sculpts and casts, but this one was fantastic. This model restored my faith in Forge World as a premier model company. Really nice, really easy to put together. A joy to assemble. So on to the painting of it. So got the model itself assembled. I then gave it a coat of matte varnish. I do this with all of my Forge World models because even if you've given them a good soak, there's no guarantee you've got rid of every last piece of mould release. So I seal it with matte varnish, which will then stop the paint from peeling. Next up was a black undercoat of the model. I then did a rather heavy white zenithal coat. And if you don't know what I mean by zenithal, basically what that means is I hold the, if you imagine that my fingers are the airbrush or the can of spray paint, because you can do it with either. I hold it at a 45-degree angle and I spray all around at that 45-degree angle. So all of the underside is still black, but the top ends up white, and you then get a varying shade of grey going down as well from parts which only get some of the coat. This then adds in some highlights already and some shading before we even begin with the paint. So next up was the paints themselves. So first off, I undercoated all the armour with this colour, Vallejo Model Air Radome Tan, which I always have to stop myself from saying random tan, but it is Radome. So this is a off-white creamy colour. If you don't have an airbrush, you could do this probably with a bone-coloured spray. Obviously you could just paint it, but I find you get a much better coverage from using an airbrush or a spray paint. You get a much smoother finish, which, especially when you're moving up to vehicles, is really what you want to do. So a couple of coats of that to ensure I had a nice even coverage. So after I'd applied the Radome Tan base coat, next up was to paint all the metals black for when I go back to base coat them later, and then to apply a pin wash of this colour, which is the Citadel shade of Cassandora Yellow. So when I say a pin wash, what I mean by that is that I've added that colour to only the areas where I want it, so it's been pinned for pinpoint, as somebody pointed out the other day when somebody was asking what was meant by pin wash. So I've added it to the recesses on the armour, anywhere where I want it to be darker, so that this will then add some shade and darkness to the model. The next stage then is to turn our armour yellow from our off-white colour. So for that we use Lamenter's Yellow. I love this colour. It's the entire reason I'm doing an Imperial Fist Army, because it makes doing that yellow something that's actually achievable. So 2 coats of that, gets us that lovely bright yellow colour that you see on the model. So after we've applied that yellow, next stage is to do our silver with, again, I've painted this, and I've painted this with a paintbrush rather than an airbrush, but I've used Vallejo Model Air Gun Grey. And I've used the Gun Grey because I think it flows nicer than some of the Games Workshop silvers, even if you're using a paintbrush. So all of the metal has then been base coated with that. All the metal has then had a black wash applied over the top of it to dull that metal down and put some shading in. Our next stage then is to apply the decals. So I've only applied 2 decals to this model. I didn't want to overdo it, but we have the Imperial Fist logo and the Legion number. Once they were applied and it had dried, then it was time to start to weather the model. So first off, we used Vallejo Model Air dark grey blue. This, I won't lie, I had it lying next to me. You could have used any grey colour. So that grey and a bit of foam. So if you've not seen this method before, tear off a bit of foam, put a bit of paint on it, take most of the paint off with a piece of paper towel, and then sponge it on to create some chipping effects. So let's see, can we zoom in on this? And yes, you can see along here these chipping effects. So just breaks up that yellow slightly. As a weathered look, I did this after the decals because I applied this over the top of the decals as well, so the decals are weathered at the same time. Otherwise they stand out like sore thumb. Next up was, well, again, I'll call this weathering because I used Forge World's Orange Rust weathering powder, and that's what's added this orange to the model. So basically what I've done here is that I've used this to essentially blend in some orange to areas where I want a darker colour to the yellow. So areas that won't have as much light. So I've used this to add some depth to the model. And I won't lie, this was an accident. I dug this weathering powder, I applied it, and it was one of those moments when I thought, oh, that looks really good. It hasn't done what I thought it would do, it's done something else entirely. So I've then used it on the model. I've then also gone back and I've experimented with using this on infantry and the like as well, just to add in that orange colour and add some more depth to armour, and I really like the effect, and I think you'll agree it really works. So next up, I dry brushed the metal back with the Gun Grey to bring it up slightly. I've not gone above that colour because I want quite a dark look. This being Horus Heresy, it tends to be a darker colour than sort of your bright contrast that you get in fantasy. And obviously the yellow from the fists is bright enough that you don't need anything else. I've then added in some brass to the metal, which you can see, mainly just because obviously you've got 2 very large pieces of metal there. Wanted to break them up. And then the last thing that I've done to make the Gravflux bombardment cannon, if I've pronounced that properly, stand out, is I've given it a glow, and I've done that, by using this Citadel Technical Nilhalak oxide, if I'm pronouncing it right. So I've just painted that in, and it's giving you this really nice, again, let's see if we can zoom in on that, really nice glowing effect in there, which I'm really happy with, and was much easier to do than if I'd have done it any other way. So again, I'm really happy with this model. At some point I'll do another video and I'll show you how I do the bases across the entire army, rather than sticking it onto the end of this one. But yeah, so the last thing I did was obviously base this model, and there we have it. Good to go. So as ever, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe below. You can find more details on both my Imperial Fist army and also everybody else's heresy armies on the blog at tablepodcast.com. And also, if you listen to the podcast, which you can get through iTunes or any other good podcast provider, just search for Table Podcast. You will quite often hear us talking all things heresy and about the building and the painting of our heresy armies. So I shall leave you with this. If you have enjoyed watching this rather than reading it, then you just leave a comment down below so I know to try this again. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks a lot, guys, and I shall see you later. Bye.